Well, it's a proper grey day today. Started off, well, rainy and foggy, but it's cleared up a bit, so ideal weather to get things done on the plot. Today, got a bit of a list. Cabbage leaves, leeks, Swedes, kale, celeriac, carrots, parsnips and turnips. So the plot's going to be giving us back today all the hard work that we've been doing, and I'll get round and harvest those quickly, and then we'll get on to some other jobs that are pressing. This is that time of year when the leeks are just perfect. They haven't got any frost damage, but they certainly are growing nice and long. And I think we're going to have a few of these out today because Mrs. Kate is going to make a soup. I asked her whether it's a soup or a stew, and she said, well, what's the difference? And I guess it's in the thickness of the sauce or the liquid. I don't know. In this case, we're not putting any meat with it. It's purely vegetarian. So what's the cross between a stew or a soup? A stoup, I suppose. Oh well, stoup for tea. Right, one more. And this one is an absolute cracker. That's the way to grow leeks, I think. I'll get that one off and chop these leaves, and I'll show you the end result. How about that? Well, it's always best to wait for a frost before you harvest parsnip, because there's no doubt about it, it does sweeten the parsnip. So I always enjoy taking these up when we've had a frost, and we have had a couple recently, and hopefully we've got some decent sized ones here. This bit of ground is pretty soft, and it allows the parsnip to get down and into the soil. Well, this is a many-legged parsnip, but it's a fair old size. Once I've taken off those edges, we'll have a decent one. We'll have a couple more of those, I think. Let's see what else we've got. I'm going to try and be methodical about this so that I can spread compost on this bed. So I need to sort of progress my way down, and at least I can spread compost where I've taken the crops out. Right, let's see what this one's like. The soil's lovely and soft. It's certainly moving nicely. Oh, that's disappointing because that's a fairly meaty foliage, but a tiny parsnip. Let's have another one. Where are we? Ah, down here. Theoretically, the deepest part of this bed, so fingers crossed, let's see what we get. Yep, another relatively decent one. Quite a few offshoots, so I'll get those cleaned up and get the leaves off them, and we'll go from there. Just a couple of turnip left now. I can see us taking all these up, and then I can get at this bed in terms of compost spreading as well. And these are fairly small. There's a decent one, a white one. And we've got a purple one there. And there we are, that's that bed pretty much emptied. Whilst I'm here, I'll do a little bit of weeding, and then I'm prepared for compost spreading pretty soon after. Right. Well, this is a pretty exciting moment. This is going to be my first celeriac of the year. And I'm just going to pull him out gradually. And I get asked a fair few questions about celeriac. A lot of people have tried them for the first time on my recommendation, and thankfully they're enjoying them. But as you can see, Celeriac is about having a decent sized root, and you can see all the small roots on the bottom, and there's nothing short of cutting through and getting rid of those, cutting the top off, and you're left with that piece in the middle. So you need to be growing Celeriac that are a reasonable size for a meal. I made a big mistake with Swedes this year. To put it quite simply, I didn't grow enough. And this is about it, which is disappointing. I need to sow more next year and plant more out. And when I look around the crops and think what I grew too much of, not a lot, but I definitely didn't grow enough Swede. And I'm going to save this one because that's looking to me like a Thanksgiving or a Christmas Day Swede. And I think today we're just going to take one of these smaller ones, and they will grow bigger, but not very much bigger now. So that one for today. And then I'm going to pick a few cabbage leaves. I cannot tell you how incredible this cabbage is. I think this is the only fielder kraut that I've got left. And you can see the slug damage is so minimal. And you compare it with the others that are bolting and pretty badly damaged. Chickens love them, but this one, absolutely fantastic. So at the moment, I'm just going to take a couple of leaves off of this, and then again, that one's going to be for a bit more of a special meal, I think. Well, these kale are at their absolute prime, in my opinion. Just beautiful leaves. You only need a few of these, but they're just perfect. And the wider they get, the better, because you take this central vein out because it's a bit tough. But there's some wonderful kale on here. And you just pick it and it comes again. And this one, the head came out of it. And it's resulted in it just pushing the leaves out really strongly. So just a couple more and that'll be enough. And that's the way it goes all winter long. Sort of cut and come again. Perfect. Well, the last vegetable on my list is going to be my carrots, which are always fun to pull. But what I am going to do first is water. I'm having to use the tradesman's entrance now because the silkies are in here. Right, let's water some of these peppers and onions that I'm sort of, well, keeping over. See what they look like. Well, you can see the onions are doing okay, and also got quite a bit of new growth on the peppers, which is a bit strange. But I just need to keep those well watered, and I'm not particularly good at that. So give them a splash and then we'll move on to the carrots. Let's get in here and see what's happening. So these carrots are pretty much done all the growing they're going to do. I will water them occasionally just to make sure they stay plump. Got a bit of weed growth in there which can come out. Let's pull one of these and have a look. Yeah, so that's not enormous, but a nice carrot. Let's see what else we got. Same, beautiful size for a meal, and not as big as I've grown in previous years, but that's fine. And there's a three-legged one. Well, two-legged. You know what I mean. And one more, I think. Yeah, now that's a beauty. What a cracking classic carrot. Sweet candle F1. Fantastic. So we'll give these a quick water just to keep things from really drying out rock hard. And that'll just tide them over. There we go, job done. Well, you put a lot of work into an allotment, but when you get a winter harvest like that, it just makes it worthwhile. And that'll make some delicious meals. And this is new compost. Going in the new compost area, which isn't quite finished, but it's good to start stocking it up. And that cabbage, that's heading to the chickens. Well, I brought my trusty hammer with me today because one of these boards has decided to split sufficiently to crack it and make it fall down. So I'm going to put a couple of nails in, and this is a 2-skinned shed because I put all these extra boards on the outside. So there was no water getting in. There we go. Keep it going for a bit longer. Well, I remembered today that I needed to get these pretty meaty screws out of here. As I said before, I don't normally use screws, but they obviously were required at this time. So we'll get the right head on this and see if we can get it apart. And I've been making a bit of a groove down the side just so that I can get to it if I need to. Let's see. More torque. Well, you can see I meant to put them together quite hard. I don't know whether I've got some more here. Yeah, I have. And I bet anything you like. There's one at the bottom which I can't get to. So I think I'm probably going to have to wait a bit until I clear some of this compost. That's not today. I was looking at this apple tree this morning, and the holly tree actually, and it's a great time of year to work out what shaping you need to do. And you can see on that apple tree I've got a really strong branch coming out. Let's get a bit closer. You can see it comes from the center there and travels all the way up, and I'm definitely convinced that's got to come out when the time is right. Otherwise I'm going to have a tree that just leans out and over. So I'm going to take that back quite far when it comes to it, and then some of these peripheral branches that are just sweeping down a bit far, I think they'll have to be managed. And then this one here, which is a big arching branch, and I think it would pay to get that out as well. So it's a good time to see what shape your trees want to be. And it's the same with this holly tree. This is a root for me, and this is just a bit low, and I need to just take that out of my way to make it workable. And when you stand back and look at this holly tree, particularly from over this side, you can see how in an ideal world it needs to be sort of bowl shaped at the bottom, and that enables good access around it. And this branch here needs to come out so that that bowl shape continues, and there might need to be a little bit of cropping at the top, but I'm going to wait on those because I know that Mrs. K likes a bit of holly for Christmas decoration. So I think this one might be quite popular with her, but I'm planning. Well, I've been putting it off for a long time whilst I rearrange things, but I need to start spreading some of this compost. And as I'm coming to the end of this video and my session on the plot, I thought I'd put a bit of energy in because I've got some left. And I'm going to take this up to the squash area and do that long stretch. That's the final squash bed. And always work on the basis that use your energy for the longest job of work first. But in this case, it's last, because all I've done today really is harvest and potter. So why not? And this is so easy. This compost is wonderful. Got a bit of a root there which can come out. And I've started to think about whether I can use this compost for growing my seeds in. It's very fine, and it might need a little bit of sand or something else just to give it a bit of body, especially for growing seeds. But I think I might give it a go. So there might be a session where I actually sieve some of this and keep it through the winter. We'll see. Right, here goes. This is the tough bit. It's always interesting to take these covers off, and especially this one, because there's never been any compost on here, only turf and various things folded over and made into a mound. So it'd be interesting to pull this off and see what sort of state the soil's in. I'm just going to pull it back. There we go. I think I've got some pegs in here. Yeah, I have. Always the way. Small pegs. I wasn't ready for those. Right, I'm going to need a fork to take those out, I think. I'll put these back when I've filled it up. It's always a bit of a moment when I've finished getting the bed ready in the squash area and everything's finished, ready for next year. There we go. Right, let's see. Well, actually it's pretty good. Very little sign of weed growth, which is good news. There's a few roots left from some of the squash and pumpkin, but that's not a problem. And where I had grass, the roots have pretty much died off. So that's pretty perfect really. And I think what I'll do now is just put a fairly thin layer, because it's quite high, and we'll be ready to cover it back over again. Got a few weeds down this end, which I'm going to pull out when I get the chance. And of course, that little bit of movement on the edge of the cover means that things can work their way in. But we should get those out. Right, ready for the first tip. And I'm going to put it on this side so that not too much of it falls over the back, because that's going to make life a bit difficult. And we'll probably only need a couple of these wheelbarrows for this because of the height. Right, let's go and get another one. It always feels good to get the squash beds finished. And there they are, 3 of them, ready for next year's growing. All I got to do now is wait. And the first thing I'll do in the spring is add some of that chicken bedding down the 2 strips, just to suppress the weeds and give myself something to walk on. And you can see this is pretty taut and it's pulled the edge a bit on the side. But as you can see with this one already, which I only did a few weeks back, it started to settle, and I end up pulling them out a little bit when the opportunity arises, and that's normally when we've had a windy time and some of the edges might have blown up. And I keep a few of these staples in the middle here, spare and ready for those windy days. That's pretty much done. Good times. Well, I think I'm done for today. Hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, click on that like button and the subscribe. And if you want my uploads, you know the score, 8 PM on a Wednesday and a Sunday. And today's going to be particularly joyous as I take these home and show Mrs. K. And there we have it, Mrs. K's Stewoup. And it's a hearty soup, and by that I mean the recipe is from the heart. No real measures. That's the way Mrs. K likes